Okay, welcome back to members of 121 Community Church in Grapevine, Texas, and our ongoing study in Evidence That Demands a Verdict by Sean Mcdowell. We're going to jump ahead in the manuscript. We're going to jump all the way to page 605. We're going to look at pages 605 to 625 and the transition from the true to the real. It really gives us the best look as to where we need to go next for defining Mcdowell's phenomenology. So we're going to take a look at block 1 first. We're going to look at this transition from the true to the real. Now, block 1, the nature of the true. We begin with implying the true. There are 3 implications. First, seeking the true is the most important pursuit. The demand of mind for the true takes place. Destiny of life also seeks the true, and the true addresses 4 questions: the question of origin, meaning, morality, and destiny. Under practical matters, the following practical issues are taken up: the issues of daily life, realizing happiness, support for science, and what constitutes value. And additionally, there is the in itself enterprise of defining truth. So there's a practical interest as well. And then under cultural engagement, truth is used to spread the gospel. We also clarify truth claims. We practice an epistemology that enlists reflection and existence itself. We counter assaults upon truth from a fallen society. And Mcdowell says there are 2 cardinal truths. Humanity is made in God's image, and the body is the temple of God. Those are 2 cardinal truths that need to be affirmed. Now, under defining the truth, in note 2, under the category of the true, there are 2 foundational concepts. There's the concept of metaphysics, the study of reality itself, and the concept of epistemology, the study of how we know. And these 2 concepts are interrelated to each other. So for Mcdowell, there is the epistemological true and the metaphysical true. Now note 3, from the true to the real, positing the metaphysics model. Under correspondence theory, truth is that which corresponds to a referent. Metaphysical truth must correspond to reality. The truth relies on actual existence of something. Now under Christian theory, Aquinas posited that truth equals conformity between intellect and thing, and Paul Copan posited truth equals a description that corresponds to that which is. Under non-Christian theory, Bertrand Russell posited that truth equals the believing mind corresponding with the objective complex. So that gives us a starting point on the nature of the true. But now we want to look at block 2 and take a look at the logic of the true and how we move on from correspondence to logic. Because that involves, number 1, forming the first principles or forming the axioms. Logic presupposes that truth is real. Thought and knowledge require logic, and logic assumes a way to describe reality. Logic assumes the correspondence theory of block 1. Logic forms the first principles, or the axioms, and as a definition, first principle equals logic as applied to reality. First principles equal logic as applied to reality. And Mcdowell says there are 2 foundational axioms. First, the law of non-contradiction. 2 opposite statements cannot both be true. And 2, logic applies to reality. It does test truth claims about reality by becoming a posited reality in need of praxis authentication. So logic is all about working out the authentication and the proof of truth claims. Now under note 2, forming the subjective and the objective, subjective claims have to do with personal preference. Subjective claims equal beliefs of the subject. Objective claims have to do with the real. Objective claims equal mind-independent objects. Mind-independent objects. Now, Mcdowell says we need to negate relativism because it says that all truth is subjective. Truth, by definition, is exclusive, however. The relativist cannot say nothing is objectively true, including my own position. That is just a nonsensical statement. Relativism leaves no room for morality, and it also undermines the value of humanity. And then if you look at note 4, perceiving truth, we may not perceive truth entirely, but that does not diminish its reality. Truth is elusive, sometimes even veiled. The key question for Mcdowell is somehow people must move from what is the case to what should be the case. In other words, it's a movement from what is to the question of ought, the question of morality, what should be the case. Somehow, we have to make that move. Let's move on to block 3. We've looked at the nature of the true, the logic of the true, and now we're going to look at the reality of the true by looking at 3 theories. Number 1, coherence theory. Coherence theory says that there's an agreement of facts within its own system. It presupposes a stable set of accepted truths. It possesses a pre-existing notion of the true. Pragmatist theory says that truth is what works, that which contributes to human well-being, but it allows for differing subjective preferences. Then McDowell says biblical theory, the scriptures imply a correspondence principle of the true. Deuteronomy and Luke both testify to this position. The aletheia truth of the New Testament speaks of the manifestation of truth in Jesus Christ. There are 8 aspects of biblical truth. It is revealed by God. Objective truth is knowable. It is absolute in nature. It is universal. It is eternally engaging. It is specific and antithetical. It is systematic and unified. And it is an eschatological, future-defining truth. A very important 8th aspect. Eschatological, forward-positing truth. But as we always do, we're going to take a look at the little summary triad now to kind of encapsulate these first 3 moments. They're critically important for defining the nature of the true, the logic of the true, and the reality of the true. So if you look at the top of column 4, we'll begin with note 1. Correspondence theory defines our metaphysical truth as that which corresponds to reality. It is the aletheia truth of the New Testament. It's a metaphysical truth that corresponds to reality. Now if you look at note 2, now we apply a logic to that metaphysical truth. Logical application of our metaphysical truth is applied to the perceived reality, and we form our practical first principles as our phronesis of practical wisdom of our positive truth claims that we want to verify. We formulate our positive truth claims that we want to verify. They become very practical, positive truth claims that we want to seek out authentication concerning. And then note 3, biblical theory model. We form a positive model of the reality of Christ's kingdom as our praxis of action and reflection. Praxis is the New Testament concept for ministry, but we take that correspondence truth, that metaphysical truth, we logically apply it to reality, and we posit truth claims as a model that we want to authenticate in order to bring the kingdom forward. That becomes a positive model of Christ's kingdom. That becomes the filter through which and with which accompanies our ministry of praxis, a ministry of action and reflection in Christ's kingdom. Let's move on and take a look at the rest of the notes in column 4 now. And we'll look at, first of all, epistemology. First principles are the basis for all knowledge, says Mcdowell. Immediate propositions express these first principles. They are not filtered through a belief system. They are self-evident truths. Being is a categorical first principle. The two foundational first principles for Christianity are as follows. There exists a reality independent of mind. 2. The independent reality is completely determinate. There's an objective determinate reality independent of mind. Now, first principles are undeniable. One cannot deny a first principle without using it. First principles play a key role in demonstration, and they play a key role in proof, in the positing of truths we want to authenticate and verify. First principles are self-evident. They are the basis for all demonstration. As an example, Mcdowell uses identity. It's the most simple of all relations. There are 4 key aspects of identity. There's indiscernibility of identicals, reflexivity of identity, symmetry of identity, and transitivity of identity. Fundamentally, to really encapsulate what Mcdowell is teaching us here, let's look at that recall triad at the top of column 4 again, because your 3 concepts that really recall the lesson are going to be aletheia, phronesis, and praxis. Aletheia, truth; phronesis, practical wisdom; and praxis, ministry of action and reflection. I'm going to read through those 3 notes again. Correspondence theory defines the metaphysical truth that does correspond to reality as our aletheia truth that we perceive and want to posit concerning the kingdom. 2. Logical application of our metaphysical truth is applied to the perceived reality, and we form our first principles as our phronesis, practical wisdom of posited truth claims we want to bring forward and authenticate. That brings us to note 3. Biblical theory model. We form a posited model of the reality of Christ's kingdom as our praxis model of the kingdom that we want to bring forward in an eschatological way in reality through ministry. A ministry of both action and reflection. A ministry of praxis, of action plus reflection. So we really get a great lesson of the nature of the true, which is the aletheia truth of the kingdom, the logic of the true, which results in practical wisdom and positing the truth claims we want to bring forward, and the reality of the true, which is the biblical theory model. That's the reality we want to posit. The biblical theory model is the real that we want to posit and bring forward. So we get a great lesson here that really has built on the first 2 lessons. And we had to make this jump in the manuscript because after those first 2 lessons, we really needed to address the issue of the true, and that didn't come up until page 605 to 625. So we have 3 solid lessons now, 60 pages of material, but 3 solid lessons that will give us a definite look at the phenomenology being posited by Sean Mcdowell. And our next lesson is going to actually look at a consolidated presentation of a model of Mcdowell's phenomenology based on our first 3 lessons. I'm going to put together a complete flowchart of the complete picture of Mcdowell's phenomenology for the next lesson. But that takes us through 3 very, very strong chapters. They're spread out a little bit in the manuscript, but we now have a great look at moving from supposition to truth, from truth to the reality, from reality to ministry. So we've taken all those steps, and we will take a look at the phenomenology next as kind of a composite summary of all 3 lessons that we've covered.